This podcast today is with Riana Milne, and she is a global life and love coach, childhood and love trauma recovery specialist. She is a best-selling author, and she has a podcast, Lessons in Life and Love podcast. This is a fabulous conversation. I am so excited to introduce you to Riana Milne. You can find her at rianamilne.com. And she also has created over 45 courses, but the one that she is talking about today is Mindset for Success course. Here is Riana Milne. There's a lot of places where we could start, because I feel like you have this wisdom and training and experience that is very expansive.
It seemed like a lot of years, girl. 40 years of doing Mindset for Success work since my 20s, and 25 years as a psychotherapist, and about, 2009. So over 15 years as a coach. So there's a lot going on there.
I really want to talk about some really important things that I think are through lines for how you're connecting people to their trauma and how to recover from that, and then learn how to love themselves, love others, and love in a relationship. And so we could go through all the dating things, and I'm sure that'll come up, but I've been on this jag recently of this quote, and I'm not sure who said it, but they said, "Who were you before the world told you who you should be?" And that's sort of my focus, is who was I before trauma and experience told me who I had to be, and then I began to live that way. And you're the person who unravels all of that for us and empowers people to you said, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach. And a coach is a person who gives tools so that people can actually find
educator.
Yes, an educator.
Yeah.
So bring us to this space of, who were we before the world told us who we should be?
Well, going into a little bit of my spirituality, I
Yes.
do believe, we're all born perfectly perfect, right? And imperfectly perfect at the same time. And life is a journey. According to Buddhism, they call this the Earth School. So we're here to learn many lessons to be the best that we can be, to transcend to even a higher being after this journey.
Yes.
So, we're all innocent kids and just a product of our environment. And when I started doing childhood trauma work, that word was not even spoken about. I have a triple master's in psychology. I did not hear the term childhood trauma in the whole master's program, which was year 2000. It was only until somebody that I love very deeply says, I don't know what's the matter with me. I sabotage everything I love. Wow. And I said, I don't know what's wrong either, but I got to figure it out so I can heal from what just happened between us. Because I went to 7 therapist friends, they all knew me and my guy, and it's like, I wouldn't know why he did what he did. Right. It doesn't make any sense. So I needed that understanding to heal. And that's when my journey started. I went into the deeper psychological journals, back at my university, and it all equated to our childhood experiences, many of them traumatic, that create our behavioral patterns and even our love map of who we attract and why we attract, and what they call chemistry. So we've grown up under the notion of, the romance novels and movies, and, you fall in love with that person that just, lights you up. Well, that could be the worst thing you could do. So we have to learn to love in a better, more educated way, because the front part of our brain creates homeostasis, right? Which is it likes what it knows. So it goes back to your beginning relationships, even if they were good or bad. It
Hmm.
can't decipher good or bad, but it likes what is normal, what it knows. So that's what chemistry is. So if you grew up with an angry, yelling father, you might be attracted to that angry, yelling guy. Okay, because that's what you know. And those that have had some abandonment, really go for that person that love bombs them. Why? Because there was abandonment, there wasn't a lot of love. So it's like, wow, this feels great. Finally, I'm loved the way I want to be loved. And then they end up being the narcissist or the sociopath, right? So you have to learn to love in a better way. So that's what I teach. And finally in 2021, I don't remember who did the research, but it was said that 100% of us have childhood traumas, just deciding which ones you had and to what degree that they were impactful for you. So when I came out with my top 10 childhood traumas, and anyone can see this checklist on my website, it's free there. um that's when you decide, oh yes, I did have that, I did have that, I did have that. And then I go deeper into the questioning, well, how did that show up for you, and was that really traumatic for you? And then I see what their patterns are currently and in their recent love relationships. So how is that showing up in love, or how's that showing up in difficulty in work or in life, meaning life having there's 7 life areas that are impacted by trauma. We can go into that. But, do you have health issues? Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression? Well, most of these are from unhealed childhood wounds. So it's very interesting work.
Well, it is. Well, yeah, I was fascinated actually. I was fascinated because you talk about narcissism, you talk about gaslighting, you talk about all kinds of things that I'm very, very familiar with from my own life experience. And I have this question that it's working out for me. It's working itself out now. I've unraveled through so many things, the emotions, the heavy duty emotions. When you are become aware of the experiences that you've had and trauma. And I think when we say trauma, people get terrified, right? It's like,
Well, most people say, oh, I didn't have trauma. I had a few bumps in the road, but it wasn't a big deal.
right.
Right. Until they hear what the top 10 traumas are. And if you'd like, I'll share them with you.
I would, yeah.
But most people then like, oh my gosh, I had 4 to 6 of those,
Right.
and it's not always within the household, right? It can be any childhood experiences from in utero.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could go through the top 10 traumas and then give you an
Please
example.
do.
Okay. So the first, there is more than 10.
Yeah.
I want to say that. And as I share them, I don't want anyone to feel shame or guilt that they went through this, because again, you're just a product of your environment. As a child, we have no ability to change where we are at that time. And it's not about blaming your parents at this stage either, because they've come from childhood trauma wounds themselves, and they probably did the best that they knew how. So we're just trying to look at this as a factual thing. Okay, so the number one is, and there are not in order of importance, just the first one is if there was any addiction in the house. So I'm also a drug and alcohol counselor. So let's name some addictions. So there's drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning you knew your parent was addicted to a person outside of the marriage, porn, gambling, hoarding, eating, spending, gaming, TV watching, and social media addiction. Workaholism is another one. So there's 12 addictions that could have been more important than being with the child.
Wow.
Okay, the second one is verbal messaging. So did you hear the words, I love you? Did you hear compliments? Then I'm proud of you. Good job, kiddo. Did you see your parents work through issues in a loving and kind way? Or was there a lot of yelling and screaming in the house? And these are the patterns that you would tend to take forward. Now, one of 2 ways. If there was a lot of screaming, and let's say there's a son in the house and he tries to stick up for mom because dad's yelling at her, and he whacks him across the face and says, you're grounded for another 3 months, that man will learn to shut down and usually become passive aggressive. I'm not saying anything because it's not safe. Okay, so that's a passive aggressive male. Okay, they learn as a child, I'll be safe if I say nothing. Okay. And then they carry that into their adult love relationships. They're afraid to speak. Same with women. If they are punished for trying to speak their mind or share their feelings, same thing. But if there's a lot of yelling in the house, the way you handle issues might be yelling at your partner because that was your norm. So we call that behavioral norms, which are not healthy, but that's what was normal to you. Okay. So this is an example. When I was pregnant, 5 kids in my family. I'm the fourth child. I was pregnant with the first grandchild for my mother. And I'm like, Mom, I hope by the time that my child is here, because we couldn't tell if it was boy or girl back then, that you are able to say the words, I love you. Because us 5 kids never heard it. Why did you never tell us? She goes, well, you knew I loved you. So first it was defensive. I showed you in so many ways. I'm like, Mom, I know you love me, but why couldn't you say the words? She goes, well, those aren't words I heard. Well, I grew up in the Great Depression. I never heard those words from my mother and father. If there was food on the table, we knew we were loved. Now I could see her pain.
Right.
Now I could see, wow, there was no affection. It was all about working hard. So there's the 3 generations and going on to the 4th one. And I'm like, so me being a therapist at this time and learning into psychology and so forth, I said, you know what, Mom, I'm sorry you never heard those words, but I'm going to start telling them to you. And hopefully one day you'll feel comfortable saying them to me
Nice.
and my child. So that did change for her over the years, but I came to her with a new understanding.
Yeah.
And before, as a kid, like, I'm not loved. Nobody tells me they love me.
Right.
This is
Right.
the kid's interpretation, right? So
Right.
we look at it now with the adult mind with some spiritual forgiveness and so forth. And this is how the healing journey starts. We go through all the different traumas.
Mm,
Okay, so the next one is emotional abuse or neglect.
mm.
And number 4 is abandonment. And there's 2 types, fault and no fault abandonment. So no fault is if a parent happens to die early, if they have to deploy for war and leave the family, or even if they travel a lot and that's how they support their family. They're
Right.
not leaving on purpose to abandon you, they are leaving to support you. And that's no fault.
Right.
Now, a fault abandonment would be never knowing your child, having nothing to do with them, being together, seeing your child until the couple breaks up, and then you rarely see your child or it's inconsistent. And another one could be even when the parent's in the home, but they're very disengaged.
Mm.
So, for example, as a therapist that used to work in schools, I used to see a lot of children. And the kids used to say, I don't want to go to my dad's. He just sits there and watches football all weekend. We don't even play. We do nothing. I'm bored. So these are kids that don't feel love. They're not engaged. They feel abandoned.
Right.
And then it's like, I'm just in my room by myself on my computer,
Right.
you
And
know?
he might say, I was there. I was there the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I would get up and make you something to eat, but I was there for you. And the child's saying, yeah, but I needed to see that differently.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's around abandonment.
Yeah.
Then the next one is any physical abuse, rape, or molestation. Again, inside or outside of the home. So you could have had an ideal home life, but then a coach molested you,
Right.
or a fellow teen molested you, right? Okay, so the next one would be if you were adopted, part of foster care, or had to go live in another person's home, or you chose to live in another person's home because of all the fighting.
Sure.
Number 7, most people can relate to, and that is called personal trauma. Did you feel different in any way? So maybe grew up, you were a chubby child and teased for that, or skinny and gawky and called a nerd, or coming out as LGBTQ and teased by your peers or rejected by your family. Maybe you were the only African American in all Caucasian school. So any way that you felt different, not good enough, you might have had ADD and identified as a special kid in the schools. So me working in the schools, those were all my kids that I worked with, and I could see that they didn't like that feeling of being different.
Yeah.
Right. And that was traumatizing for them, being labeled.
Yeah.
Number 8 is around the sibling. So your sibling could have bullied you. They could have been born with special needs, which commanded more of mom's and dad's time. Or most often, you can identify the sibling in your family who was the golden child, the favored one. And there was 2 sisters, brother, me, brother, and I was told that I messed up her birth order because she only wanted 2 girls and 2 boys. And so, I mean, that was another way of saying, so I'm sorry you were the mistake. I got to go back and try again for my boy. But I was always close to my brothers, and I knew it wasn't their fault, but they were the golden child.
Right.
And it's interesting how they excelled more when I look back, like all American water polo and swimming. And even when I made nationals in water polo, or I got a record at Penn State Hall of Fame for swimming, nobody believed me until it was in the paper. You
No one
know,
believed you until it was in the paper.
yeah, my mom said, "Oh, you set a record for Penn State?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." Well, why didn't you tell me this is a swim meet? I'm like, "No, that's okay. You didn't need to go." Because it was always a critical thing. Oh, you didn't do your best time, or this wasn't this, and I really didn't want her there because it was more
Wow.
comfortable for me to not have her there.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. So then she saw it in the newspaper. I didn't even know they were going to put an article in there, but there it was.
There it
So
was.
yeah. So anyway, and then 9 is 2 different ones.
Yep.
One is family trauma. This is if any parent was incarcerated. This is describes our military families in the U.S. where they're moving every 3 to 4 years for a different assignment,
Yes.
making the child the new kid in the school all the time. This is growing up in poverty, or most recently, and this is why I think 2021 came out and said everyone has childhood trauma, was the whole COVID thing.
Right.
And this is what they would call community trauma. It impacts the community at large. So COVID infected everyone around the world, impacted our school kids, right, needing to stay home, and our whole family dynamic changed. And another community trauma is any of our mother nature events, floods, fires, hurricanes, destroying communities in large, right? So those are combined together as number 9. And then number 10 is mental health issues in mom and dad. And the 2 most difficult for children to navigate around is bipolar and borderline personality disorder. So
Yep.
borderline, I describe it simply as when you're good, you're great. When you're bad, you're hard, and you never know what you're going to get. These
Yeah.
people explode at the littlest things. And then bipolar is manic depressive. Most people think manic's a high and happy one. Well, it could be like going on a shopping spree and buying $3,000 worth of clothes and shoes, and then for months later you're depressed because you can't pay the bills.
Right.
So they always kind of go hand in hand, which is bipolar.
Yes.
So those are the top 10 that I named. There are more than those, but those are the most common that I've seen.
And those are the most common that you see in terms of how there is evidence from childhood, then you move through your teens, you move into your life, you're ready to find love, you're ready to connect to someone, you're ready to experience business, you're ready to receive love in some way, receive abundance.
Right.
And there's limitation.
This is where the limitations or feeling stuck come in. Let's say you want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you have to, like, this is my journey. You have to invest in coaching to learn how to be a great global coach, right?
Right.
So I invested in someone named Lisa for a whole year, one of the top coaches in teaching you how to take your message globally.
Yes.
And it was 85,000 for the year. And they're like, Riana, you could buy 2 cars. I'm like, I don't need 2 cars. I need to take this message to the world because nobody knows about childhood trauma.
Sure.
My books are written, my notebooks are written. I'm ready to go. I need to know how to do it.
Yes.
So to me, it made sense. But a lot of it was fighting, like growing up with that lack messaging,
Yes.
like it's funny, my fiance and I talk about our homes were always the thermostat was turned down to 53. And it was freezing when we went to bed. We went to bed with socks and hats and gloves. And my mom said, well, that's healthy for you. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm freezing, and that was the norm, right? Yeah. So there's also cultural norms and society norms for the time that you grow up. So that was very interesting too. But yeah, depending on what you grow up with, these lack messages, hearing we don't have money for the gas bill. I'm like, oh, we're poor,
Right.
Those kinds of things, and fighting that as wanting to invest in yourself. So, once you are healed of the childhood trauma, you have more of a faith-based belief system in the universe and in yourself to say, I believe I will do this. If I make this investment, I am putting out to the world, I believe in myself, and therefore I will get what I want back. And that's what happened. Yeah. So you have to get beyond all these traumas
Yes.
to grow to the desired career you want, to
Yep.
meet the amazing person that you want. Like you hear a lot of people saying, well, I settled for my
Yes.
partner. Well,
So
why?
many people.
Yeah, because they felt they didn't deserve better. Why was that? Right. So it goes back to their first love traumas, their family trauma. So I look at both of those to
It,
see
it
what
looks in
people
some of
do.
those places where people say, well, I'm not enough. I just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Life wasn't enough. I wasn't enough in class. I wasn't enough with my friends. I wasn't enough in my life. Therefore, I'm not equipped
Well,
to,
even girls that marry say, well, my father says I'm nothing unless I'm married. You know,
right.
thinking back to the 70s, you better
Yeah.
get married or you're
Yeah.
not an attractive woman or you're
Right.
not, you know, this or that. It was very different to not want to be married in your 20s. You know, it was the
Right.
thing you did. So that's societal norms that we all went through. And getting married at 21 was really young, having two babies at 24, 25, and divorce at 26.
Right.
Right. So
That
it
was
was not
you.
easy.
That was
Yeah.
your life. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was married at 20 and
Hmm.
I had my first child at 24, then 25, and then so on. And
Yeah.
we're together. It's been 30 years this year. The thing about for us is that we've learned how to live and love in a better way.
Yeah.
And so
True.
how does someone begin to find the safety in themselves? I think that's one of the things that I know people struggle with is, okay, so we've got these traumas. Everybody says, okay, we've got 100% people have one of these, they fall in these categories, or they've been
Right.
touched by this category.
Right.
Now, how do we learn to love ourselves in a better way? How do we learn to love ourselves first and nurture ourselves into the path of healing or unraveling this?
Right. Well, the healing is quite a process. I call it going over the rainbow. Start as I don't know what I don't know, because that's where I
Correct.
was with my partner. Like, I don't know why he's like this. I don't know why I attract men like this. Now, this
Right.
is my second toxic person that I loved. My first one ended up stealing 200,000 from my mother. That's why I divorced him. And it took me
Whoa.
16 years of my life to pay her back, working 5 jobs as a single mom. But I figured if he was not in our lives, she would not have been ripped off. So I took responsibility for it. But that's what I'm saying. My life was not easy as a young woman, but I made sure, even though I worked hard, I played hard, I traveled, I took my girls for wonderful experiences. I taught my girls mindset as they were growing up. So even if they had this certain type of father, they
Yeah.
were going to grow up and be independent and smart and strong. And they were out of the home by 18 and 19, doing their own thing. My one daughter put in water wells in Tanzania, Africa, starting at the age of 20. She also sang on 3 multi-platinum CDs, and she's a top coach today. Alexi Panos is my daughter. I
Mm.
don't know if you heard of her. And then my other daughter is also very successful, running Florida Freedom to Read Project and addressing Congress and the Senate, trying to save books from being banned.
Yes.
Right. So, very strong, very courageous women.
Yes.
And even though I struggled and they knew I struggled, I just kept moving forward. But I was studying spirituality and mindset since my teens. So that was really a big part of my saving grace. I knew I would make it if I had nobody bringing me down. So,
I have a question about this. So
yeah,
you say, okay, 5 jobs, single mom, you got this pressure of you took accountability for someone else's um um
toxic
harm.
action.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like you didn't take the money from your
right.
mother. They did. And yet you took action yourself because you felt responsible. I find that just that's in and of itself quite fascinating to me. Um,
Thank you.
but what drove you forward? What was the thing that called to you as you're dealing with all of this?
Well, I think when it happened, going back even further, my very dear childhood friend at 16 was killed by a drunk driver named Michael. And at that point, I promised Michael I'd give back in his spirit in some way. And I asked my mom if I could go to a counselor. And she goes, no one in this family will ever go to a counselor. And I said in my defiance, and I will grow up and become one because people like me need help sometimes, you
Yeah.
know, because I lost my best friend. You know, we were 5 years old and grew up down the street from each other. So that was a very hard loss for me. And then at 23, 24, I was pregnant, so 24, my Penn State girlfriend, my best friend, Corinne, was murdered by her boyfriend. So I promised to give back to women and men of domestic violence due to her murder. So here I lost two really good friends, and I'm like, they should have had their whole life ahead of them.
Right.
So I always asked, how much time do I have?
Wow.
And I was always like, well, I want to be a therapist and I want to have kids and I want to be married. And I, so I wanted to reach these certain goals for myself.
Yeah.
And the thing that helped my healing from the loss of Michael was reading my spiritual books. So A Course in Miracles, the Dalai Lama, Tony
Yes.
Robbins, Marianne Williamson, all the great masters of the time was what I started reading. So I was doing mindset work from my teenage years. So after I divorced the first husband, I opened up a model and talent school and agency with my first month's rent because I had a $750,000 bankruptcy due to his business failures. And I said, I can do this.
Wow.
And within 6 months, I got the International Model and Talent Association Award for educational excellence. And then within 1 year, I won the Model and Talent School of the Year internationally. So that was really cool. I started with 4 people. I said, okay, I got 4 people. These people are going to have the education of a lifetime. And
Yeah.
then by 1 year, I had 24 in a waiting list for my school.
But this is what it sounds like to me, though. It's so interesting that, so for many of us, belief narratives get in the way.
Self-talk.
So yeah, that self-talk, that it trips you up. It's just it's like a death knell. It is the thing that the self-doubt or the resentment or the bitterness or this happened to me. Like, how come this happened to me?
There was no time for that,
this is what I wrote down. How much time do I have? I asked the question, what drove you to move forward? And you told me and you told us that through your life, you lost 2 people that were dear to you.
Yeah.
And that pushed you into a chute that said, how much time do I have?
Right.
So then you made a choice. This is what is so powerful to me. And I now I see this is the through line. It's like you're going, how much time do I have? How much time do you have, Lori, to sit and to be the victim?
Yeah,
Or
there was no time to be a victim. No.
That's what's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did what I had to do and enjoyed it. I love the talent business. We had a blast. I grew up with, I had the people from 5 to 84 years old in my talent company. And the 84-year-old was one of my busiest models. So I was teaching them mindset for success and belief system, that they could model and go on to big markets in LA, New York, Paris, if they were high fashion models and so forth. And they're from this little town of Erie, PA. But what did I do? I flew in Vogue photographers and high style makeup artists to make them feel and look in their photography like magazine models. And we went out to the conference and won everything. So, if there's a will, there's a way. I had a really great mentor boss when I was young. And he always said, "Hun, think outside of the box. And you always got to have a gimmick," meaning, what are you doing different from everybody else? So whether it's my therapy business where, they come into my office, you could come in your pajamas and slippers. I always had, nice coffees and wrapped chocolates and, jazz on the television. It was a really comfortable candles burning kind of therapy office.
Yeah.
I've been to other ones where it's cold and stark and sterile.
Yes.
I'm like, no, no, no,
No,
not
you
my
feel like you're in a
office.
doctor's office
Yeah,
and versus, yeah, like
right.
you're trying to make people feel like they want to sit down and have a talk with
Cared
you,
for,
right?
cared for. Yeah. So, everything I did, every business I did, what is different that you can bring to it, right? How
Yeah.
can you be different? So, these are some of the things that I teach. When you do coaching for trauma, you're looking at everybody's life in total.
Yeah.
Like, are you prepared for retirement? Well, let's talk about your investment funds. Do you have enough friendships? No. Why are you isolating? Let's get you friends. Do you want to travel? Well, let's figure out how you can work in a trip or two a year. And what type of trip do you want to do? Do you
Right.
want to grow a business? Let's do that. So many people are just so afraid. It's this
Mm.
fear-based negative thinking that holds people back from their success in life. And where's that come from? The messaging that they got as kids.
Yeah.
Or came from, trying and then it wasn't good enough. So they would be afraid to try again.
Okay,
Or
so
being
what do you say right there? So I know our viewers listening, they're saying, okay, I'm afraid I failed and I want to start again. How do I do this? How do you do that?
I want
Because
you to remember one thing:
yes,
failure is only feedback. Try something different. Try your plan B or your plan C. Not everything out of the box is supposed to work.
failure is
Is
only
only,
feedback.
yeah. So it takes the pressure off you. It's like you didn't fail, you tried. If you didn't try, that would have been failure, right?
Okay.
So it's just
Okay.
if that didn't work, okay, that's feedback. Like I was one of the first coaches to have an app on the phone back in 2011, like
Yep.
way when the apps just first came out. I'm like, this is
Mm.
really cool. Everybody will use it. Nobody used it. I had it paid for 5 years. I'm like, nah, I'm going to be done with it now. It's
Right.
just people that wanted free coaching and that wasn't going to align with what my goals were.
No.
So I decided not to continue. But did I see it as a failure? No, I thought it was pretty cool that I did this really great app and was one of the first 3 or 4 coaches in the world that had an app on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But the other thing that I'm thinking as you're talking is you also said when people said you could buy 2 cars with the coaching, if
Right.
you're going to go get coaching that's 85,000, why would you do that? Why would you put that much money in? How do you know this is going to work? And you
Because it's
said,
my mission in my world, right? So you
yes,
take your pain and make it your passion and your purpose.
that's
The
right.
purpose was to help people around the world understand what childhood trauma is, know that you can heal and get way beyond it, to
Yes.
live the life, which my motto is create the life you desire and have the love you deserve. And it's always first, create the life you desire first.
Yeah.
Because when you become a strong, empowered single and learn empowered communication, not vulnerable, empowered. So you
Ah,
live your life, you've got great friends, you love your work. If you have children, you've got a nice relationship with your children are launched successfully, you focus on creating your life you desire. Then the love that you deserve comes easily. And you're easily able to see, no, he's a nice person, not for me,
yep.
because I want this certain lifestyle. If they don't come into that future vision that I have for myself, then they're just not the one. And you
Right.
should release them in love. Some single people that are on apps, it's like, oh, they ghosted me. And what am I not pretty enough? This enough, that. I'm like, no.
No.
To me, I just thank you, God, for showing me he's not the right one. Next.
And that's
And
what you
that's
said.
how light we take it. Like, that's not a big deal.
Yeah. That's how
Yeah.
you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, can we talk about a few things? I want to know um how some of us unknowingly sabotage because as you're talking, you're saying, look, you're saying failure is only feedback. And yet I know in my own life, and I'm using myself as an example, um, the failure for me was it's not feedback. It's like it hurts. It's not anymore or as much anymore, but definitely a limiting belief of mine was failure is me. And then I can't do that anymore. I'm out of the game. I can't. And so
Mhm.
how do you move people through success without scarcity? Because if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to come into those moments where roadblocks happen all the time.
Of course, yeah, it's a part of the entrepreneurial journey. So what are you learning? You have to learn something good from the bad,
Yep.
right?
Okay.
So there was a lot of different things I wanted to try as being a coach. I mean, I launched a podcast. I have 125 shows and
Yep.
350 on YouTube now. That was
Yep.
successful,
Yes.
So it's like, and then what resonates with me?
Yeah.
Like social media never really worked for me. I put stuff up there. I'm very inconsistent. To me, it's a big time lag.
I know.
And I think I've had one person in 25 years say, I came to you from Instagram. I'm like, you did? Wow.
How? How did you
Seriously?
do that?
Because that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be doing all these little tapes. Now, I will do tapes to educate because I'm an educator, right?
Yes,
So I
of
have a
course.
lot of tapes on YouTube. My videos, most of my podcasts are videos. So I will do videos but I'm not going to do silly little stupid things because it doesn't resonate with who I am, right? It just doesn't. So you got to find out what is your niche. Number one, what is your passion?
Yeah.
And then number two, how would you like to present that to the world? So for me, it's through speaking, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's speaking on my own podcast, on yours, Lori,
Yeah.
or summits. I do a ton of summits, where I'm part of 30 other coaches talking about one topic, because that is my passion to educate. And because it's helped thousands and thousands of people over the years when I've educated them in mindset for success and healing both childhood and love trauma. That is you can feel my energy and my passion because I know it works so well, right? So it's nicer to hear it through my voice than pictures on an
Yes,
Instagram.
I agree.
Yeah,
You've mentioned the mindset for success, and can we just talk about that? Because it sounds to me like this is where a lot of things are birthed out of. So this would be your life experience that you have collated into something called mindset for success.
The book Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and
Mm,
Success, which is
yes.
the sister book to Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to
Yes.
Have the Love You Deserve. And they're meant to go together because you need to feel great about yourself and your mindset has to be in place to have ideal love,
Wow.
right? So they're meant to go together. They're called sister books, but I wrote Live first.
Okay.
And it is about mindset for success, how I taught myself that coming from very limited messages, a lot of critical messages or put downs, being teased as like when I did the childhood traumas, I'm like, well, that was me. I was the skinny nerd, I
Right.
was told my swimming time was never good enough. I was never given a compliment. I'd find yourself in these things. And then
Yes.
the one that took me 2 weeks to really uncover, I'm like, oh my gosh, I did have that one,
Yeah.
was the abandonment one, when my dad was CIA, FBI, and we didn't know. So I remember
Oh,
asking a lot, like, where's dad? And when's daddy coming home? It wasn't until later years that he was sick with cancer. We heard from Ronald Reagan and William Casey, and we knew all the presidents he served under. So that was interesting. My dad was James Bond, but
gosh.
that was a no fault abandonment because he didn't mean to abandon us, but that's how he earned his money to raise a family of five, right?
And
So
how did you just quickly, like not to divert, but then how do you take that on? How did you filter that through your experiences at that time and go, just like you did with your mother, where your mom said, well, look, I like, you know, um, food's on the table, that's love.
right.
I don't need to say it. And your dad's like, I don't need to be here. That's love too. Like so you're kind of in this abandonment zone. How did you move into forgiveness on that so that you could be free?
Well, a couple things. One, my dad was very affectionate and emotion based when he was home. I
Okay,
was
good.
very close to my dad. I was called my dad's daughter, right? So we're very similar. And he was a really cool guy. Um, And of course, I didn't know none of us could know out of
Right.
the family safety what his work was. So we thought he was a contractor and went to track meets and those kinds of things. So we really didn't know. But I wasn't mad at him.
Mm.
To me, he was off working. That's just what we were told. He's off working. See, children accept kind of what they're told in many ways, and you don't question it much as a kid.
Yeah.
But as an adult, what did I attract into my life? The handsome, charming, which he was. He looked like James Dean,
Oh,
handsome,
yeah.
charming guy
Yeah.
that was very often emotionally absent.
Interesting.
So I attracted a man like my father
Wow.
twice. Yeah.
Twice.
Before I knew this information. Then that was after the second, I'm like, okay, I need to know what I'm doing wrong here.
Yeah.
When people say my picker's off, that's what I'm saying. Like, why am I picking these people? Like, I'm
I
hard
am
work.
picking the wrong person here.
Right. So that is what led me to the research. And I'm like, if I'm struggling, so are other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then, yeah, so it's great because I had the therapy background, but not really the information I needed.
No.
And then I went on for CCTP, which is Certified Clinical Trauma Professional Level Advanced.
Yes.
So, and I'm always adding to my licenses and certifications so that when clients turn to me, they are getting the
Right.
best care and the most recent information,
I always
healing.
appreciate the just a sort of a glimpse behind the veil in that way, as especially as someone with your I mean, you've got a triple master's. You're very educated in people and in how to help people live a better life. And I find that sometimes we don't know that about the people that we're talking to, about our therapists or the person that we're
Yeah.
giving our stuff to. And and this is really helpful because I can see that this informs so much of your life's work. And this is the passion for you, is to show people that you can just have better. And like you said, how much time do you actually have?
Right. So why delay? Why second
Why
guess? Yeah.
delay? Why delay by sitting and saying, oh, tomorrow I'll do it?
Or I can't, or I won't.
Yeah.
When we talk about mindset, Laura, if I have a little bit of time to teach a small
Oh,
lesson, if I
please.
may.
Thank you.
Okay. From Buddhism, like I'm very faith based. I read a lot of different
Yeah.
backgrounds in spirituality. So from Buddhism, the yin yang circle, right? The white paisley, we say on the right side with a little black dot, and the black paisley is on the left side with a white dot. So we're always trying to live in the light, which is in the right side. This is conscious right thinking. This
Okay.
is where you feel love and joy and friendship and passion and living in the zone, working in the zone. Everything just feels good and right, living in the light. If you're
Mm.
living in the dark side, this is where anxiety, depression, murder, rape, anything that feels bad, ugly, anger, jealousy, anything that feels bad is living in the dark side. Okay. When I start training my people, like I said, they're going up over the rainbow. There's a huge learning curve. So I work with my people 4 to 6 months, men and women, 16 to 83 is my oldest, straight and LGBTQ, it doesn't matter. Childhood trauma has no prejudice.
No, it doesn't. You're right.
So there's a learning curve of all the trauma recovery skills and understanding the past because you can't change what you don't know or understand, right? So they have to understand it, forgive it, learn some spirituality around it. And then they're learning mindset at the same time because the goal is to have full conscious awareness over your subconscious behavioral patterns from the past that don't serve you anymore.
Say that one
So
more time. So you have to have
a
full
full
consciousness.
conscious mindset
Yep.
to really choose what you say, do, write, text before you do it.
Yes.
Then you're asking 5 things. Okay. So I use a lot of symbols and stuff for help people remember. Is this ideal for me? Is it good for the person I love? Is it good for my family and children? Is it good for my reputation and in the job, and in my reputation in the community and on my job? If in doubt, go without. Doing, saying it, writing it, texting it.
Wow.
So this is conscious awareness that I teach my people around mindset. So we always ask when you're living in the light, what can I do? versus people who are living the dark side say, I can't do that. Right. So the dark side is the victim mentality. That's where fear-based negative thinking lies.
Yeah.
The little white dot there reminds you that at any time you can come into the light, do all these mindset tools, trauma recovery tools. One's called capping and correcting that negative thought into a positive one. Yes, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then we have meditation where we meditate on the outcome. Every day is meditation, 15 minutes, that's it.
Yeah.
But it's good for the brain and the body and healing trauma, right? So there's all these different tools that you learn that come together that are interacting with each other.
Yes.
Like during COVID, most people would go to the dark side and say, oh my God, I can't work. I can't do this. What's going to happen to me? And then my first thought is like, oh my God, I have 30 days. What can I do in 30 days? I don't have to go out for the weekend.
I can learn to make sourdough.
I wrote 2 books, Happiness Beyond Your Dream and Anxiety-Free Living and Loving. So that's what I did during COVID, 30 days, right? So that's just our first reaction. What can I do with that extra time? Great. So it's a program. Some people want to come to counseling and learn that. It's like, it's 4 to 6 months of intensive education, right? That I am checking that you are using and practicing and learning and growing with this. And I do couples as well. So now I have partner A, I'm working with their trauma, partner B, and then the relationship trauma, the yelling, the toxic cycles that keep going on and on. So that's also a challenge, but I do that as well.
This is really interesting to me. So especially the yin yang, because I didn't see it like that. I mean, that's what you're saying, and I get it. That there's always light inside of that darkness, inside of that dark spot, right?
Right.
I had a guest one time talk to me about the feelings that I was feeling. I grew up, I have some traumas. CP, I have chronic PTSD. Well, I don't have it. I work through it.
There you go.
And that's really important to me is, refusing to allow those kinds of things to define me and limit, because I'm a parent, I have adult kids. And, I wasn't going to let what my guest called it the marinade, how I was marinated, affect what I had been given as a family.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said, you're not the pain and you're not the emotion and you're not the shame that they gave you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you're talking about the mindset, it's what you're essentially uncovering that and saying, you are not the deficiency. You are not those things. You can find yourself again, and you can find yourself outside of what messages you were shown as a child.
We are always rewriting the messages in our mind, in our self-talk, always rewriting them. When a negative one comes up, we are retraining our mind to think differently constantly. And that's what the practice is. And also that little white light, or the black light in the white paisley. I didn't get into that one. That is the challenges that are supposed to come up in your school. It wasn't supposed to be an easy breezy ride. Our challenges teach us lessons, which make us greater to go on for better and bigger things.
Yes.
So we look at the challenges and say, okay, that's not working. The app didn't work. What else could I try? Well, I could try something on Amazon, the Alexa. I could try something on this. I could try a podcast. Which one resonates with me more? Let me do plan B. Sorry, let me try plan B. Alexa, stop. Let me try plan B. And then let me try this plan B podcast. If that doesn't work, I'll try plan C. So we're always going on to what can I do? Always.
Yeah.
The challenges are expected, so they don't freak us out.
Right.
They're not like, over here. So we're not saying, why me? Like so many people do. And if there's a breakup, someone doesn't want to be with you, it might be a sad event, but it's like, okay, if you feel this is not for you anymore. I release you in love and best of luck. And I'm going to go on and find the one that is.
No, I love it. I love it. Okay, so takeaway. What do you want people to know? What is the biggest takeaway for all of this?
Create the life you desire and have the life you deserve. Do it now. If I can help you, go to my website. It's my name, rianamilne.com. And if you want to meet with me, there's a discovery big orange button right there. I spend 2 hours with you at an incredibly low price if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah.
And the childhood trauma checklist, the red flag checklist on your partner and other tests are free. There is free book chapter downloads. And my podcast is free called Lessons in Life and Love with
Yes.
Coach Riana Milne.
Well, thank you, Riana. You are amazing. This was
Thanks,
a
Laura.
very detailed discussion, and I'm really happy to share it with everybody. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much for having me. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.